Hi, today is day 3 of our percents unit, and we'll be discussing markup, discount, and taxes. You're a consumer, you're going to buy things for the rest of your life. It'll be important to understand what the words markup means, what the word discount means, and what tax means, especially when you're shopping and spending your own money. You want to be able to figure out how much something's going to cost, maybe before you actually get to the register to purchase it. So anyway, first example, a TV costs $500. They will do a 30% markup. How much will you pay for the TV? Now, a markup is what the company charges over their cost of the item. So that'll be how much they get in profit. So typically on things like TVs, the markup is pretty high. So they're going to make a pretty big profit. So we're going to add 30% of this price to 500. Okay? And there's two ways you can do this. One way is to take the $500 and multiply it by 30% written as a decimal. So on your calculator, you would do 500 times 0.30. That's $150. So that means on a TV, a company like Best Buy is going to add $150 to the price. So when it asks you how much do you pay for the TV, you're actually paying $500 plus the $150 markup. So it'd be $650. Okay, and some items out in the world are marked up 100%, which means you're basically paying double what it costs them to make it. And electronics are one of those that can have heavy markups. Another way to do this problem, instead of multiplying 500 by 30%, is realize that you're going to pay 100%, which is 500, plus 30 more percent of the cost. So you're actually paying 130% of the cost. So you could convert this to a decimal, which is 1.30, and simply multiply 500 times 1.30. And that's $650. Doing it this way actually saves you the step of having to add the $150 to the $500 to get the total cost. So in this method, when there's a 30% markup, it's like you're paying 130% of the cost. So I simply multiply 500 times 1.30, which is the decimal for 130%. Either way is fine. They both work. Example 2, there's also 7% sales tax on the TV. How much will you pay with tax? So the tax gets added on when you purchase the TV. So one way to do it is to take the $650 that I'm going to pay for the TV and multiply it by 7%. I turn the 7% into a decimal. This will compute the tax that I'm going to owe. So 650 times 0.07. 45.5, which is $45.50. Now that's the tax, which will be added to the total cost. So 650 plus 45.50 gives me 695.50. So one way to do this is to multiply the cost of the TV by the tax, 0.07 per 7%. This gives me the amount of tax I'm going to pay, and then I could add the tax to the cost. Another way to do it would be to do it like we did above and realize I'm going to pay 100% of the cost plus 7% of the cost in tax for a total of 107%. I can change 107% to a decimal, it's 1.07, and then I could simply take the 650 and multiply by the 1.07. That will give me 695.50 as well. So doing it this way, once you compute the tax, you'll have to add it to the total. Doing it this way, you add the tax as a percentage to the total, telling us the total percent we're going to pay. And then I could turn that into a decimal and multiply it by the total cost. And that gets me right to my total cost. Either way, again, is fine. And if you understand both, you're in really good shape. Now, third example. An iPhone costs $300. You have a 15% off coupon. How much will the iPhone cost with your discount? So one way to do it is to take the $300 the phone costs and multiply it by 15% as a decimal. This will give us the amount of the discount, $45. Now, to figure out the total cost to me, though, I have to take 300 and subtract $45. And it's going to cost me $255. Okay? Again, though, there's another way to do it. So 100% of the cost is the $300. And I'm going to subtract 15% of that, which means I'm actually going to pay 85% of the cost of the phone. So I could take the 85%, turn it into a decimal, and multiply the cost of the phone by that. And I get right to $255. So I could multiply by the 15% and then subtract because it's a discount. Or I could subtract 15% from 100% right off the bat. Realizing I'm going to pay 85% of the cost, turn that into a decimal, multiply it by the cost, and I get $255. Again, if you understand both these methods, that's probably the best. But you can pick which one you'd like. Now, there's a 6.5% tax. How much is the phone after tax? Well, I'm going to take the $255 that I'm going to pay, and I could multiply it by 6.5% as a decimal. Now you move the decimal 2 places to the left, so it'd be 0.065. This will tell me how much the tax is. $16.50. Now, it says 16.575. They almost always round up, so it'd be $16.58. But now I would need to add $16.58 to my cost, which is $271.58. Now again, I could use the other method, which means I'm going to pay 100% of the cost plus 6.5% of the cost, which is 106.5% of the cost. Turn that into a decimal, move it 2 places to the left, so it's 1.065, and that's what I would multiply my 255 by. And that would get me right to 271.58. So you can either add the tax as a percentage, or you could figure out the tax by multiplying that by a decimal, and then just add it to the total. On this side, we get the total right off the bat. Either way is considered fine. And again, if you understand both, that's probably the best. On the back, second page of the notes, you have a new car costs $15,000 to make in the factory. They mark up the car 20%. How much will the car cost to buy? So one way to solve this is to take the $15,000 and multiply it by 20%. But whenever you multiply it by a percentage, you turn it into a decimal first. So 15,000 times 20% is $3,000. So you're going to end up paying $15,000 plus $3,000, which is $18,000. Or we could do it the other way and say we're going to pay 100% of the cost plus the additional 20% markup, which is 120% of the cost. Turn 120% into a decimal, it's 1.20, and multiply it by the $15,000 the car costs. When you do that, you get automatically jump to the $18,000 cost. Again, it's your choice which method you use. Then there's a 7.5% tax on the car, how much you pay with the tax. So you have $18,000. You can either multiply it by 0.075. Remember, decimal place 2 places to the left. So 18,000 times 0.075 is $13.50. And of course, you'd have to add that to the total, giving me $19,350. The other way would be to remember you're going to pay 100% of the cost plus an additional 7.5% for a total of 107.5% of the cost. Change that to a decimal, so it's 1.075. Multiply it by the cost of the car, and that gets me right to $19,350. Again, either way is fine, whatever you prefer.